Hello, everybody. I see that we've got some friends trickling in, so I'll give everybody a few minutes to get settled, but so happy to have you here. While we're waiting for everybody to trickle in, it's a great time to practice using the chat. So if anybody wants to throw in the chat who they are and how old your children are, I think this would be a great time to do that.
That's cool.
We'll just give everyone maybe one more minute to join and then we'll get started. Hi, Jane. Thank you for throwing that in the chat. Oh, and I see also if you put your chat on for everyone rather than hosts and panelists, then everybody can see, but also feel free to send us messages if you want just us to see it. That's fine too. Hello, Elizabeth and Craig. Ooh, LA. Nice. Well, I know it's a little early there, so thanks for tuning in. Cool. Well, I am going to go ahead and, hey, Deb, another Californian. Oh, congratulations, Stephanie. Another Californian too. Lots of West Coasters here. Well, I'll go ahead and get started, and we'll have plenty of time to chat. I'm Jessica Pallay, and I am the Director of Communications at Vivvi. We are a childcare and early learning provider, and I am very excited to be here with Hatch tonight, hosting this wonderful webinar, Childcare 101, where we are going to talk about all things having to do with childcare. You may have expected to see my colleague Danielle, who was originally supposed to host this webinar, so bear with me, but unfortunately for us, but fortunately for her, she was invited to Washington, D.C. last minute to advocate for moms and working parents. So we wish her luck, and you get me instead. So I am so happy to be here. I am a mother of two. I have two girls, Elsie and Libby. They're 10 and 12 now, and we live in Brooklyn. And although I can tell you that parenting doesn't get any easier, it does get different. And I think that childcare continues to be one of the most challenging discussions or kind of challenges that I've ever dealt with as a parent. I'm joined here today by some great panelists, including Rachel Meakins, mom to an 11-month-old son, Corinna Williams, mom to an almost 3-year-old daughter, and Tina Mangan, mom to 2 daughters, 5 months and 3.5. All of our panelists know how important childcare is, not just for your child, but also for yourself. So I can't wait to dig into this conversation. I'm just going to set the stage. When I had my first daughter, which was 12 years ago, I was working full time. I got on all the lists of all the local daycares in my neighborhood in Park Slope while I was pregnant. And by the time I went back to work 12 weeks after I had my baby, I was off none of them. So I hired a nanny. It was, very overwhelming, very challenging. I had a lot of guilt. It was very tense at many times, lots of miscommunication, and also many, many joys. But the experience stuck with me, and it's part of why I ended up here at Vivvi, which really is about finding affordable, accessible childcare and really supporting working parents in a way that at that time I felt that I didn't have. And it's why I am just so passionate to be here talking about this today. So thank you everybody for joining in and for being part of this conversation. If you're not already familiar with Vivvi, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we do. Vivvi is a childcare and early learning company with full and part-time programs for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. We have 7 beautiful campuses around New York, including in Westchester, and we enroll children from 6 weeks to 5 years old. We also work with employers like Etsy, the Skim, and New York Presbyterian Hospital to set up childcare as a benefit for their employees. And my email is jessica@vivvi.co. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me anytime. In terms of program logistics, we have about 45 minutes here together. So I'm going to use the first 30 minutes to ask our panelists a few questions. Then we're going to head into the chat and I'm going to answer all of your questions. So feel free to throw them in there at any time. Keep them coming and we will keep an eye over there and try to answer as much as we can. I do want to acknowledge that there's no way we're going to talk about everything in 45 minutes. I wish we could. So we'll do our best to give you at least one concrete tip to walk away with and just feel a little bit better about wherever you are on your journey. So with that, I'd love to just go around and have everybody introduce themselves. Rachel, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Meakins. I'm also in LA now. Jessica, I don't know if you knew this, but we moved to LA when our son was 3 months old in March. So we're now on the West Coast. I became a doula in New York City in 2015 and just slowly started adding perinatal services as I realized mothers needed them. So I'm also a lactation counselor, childbirth educator, and I also work with a company called Fair Play Life that does essentially divvying up of domestic tasks. So it's really helpful in the postpartum period to sit down and communicate with your partner about those things. So I do a lot of work with them as well. And I just started working with a company that does vaginal microbiome testing called Vivvi. So I'm wearing a lot of hats right now, but it's all in, women's healthcare is really like near and dear to my heart. So just want to make sure all the moms are supported.
Love it. Thank you. Corinna, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Corinna Williams. I currently live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I am mama to a toddler, Leela, who turns 3 next month, which I cannot believe. I originally grew up in Germany, where, as most of you know, childcare in Europe looks a lot different than it does here in the United States. So navigating having my first child here and having to look for childcare has been a challenge, to say the least. I also work full-time. I run my own business. I'm the co-founder of Celsius, which is New York City's premium sustainable laundry service, and also an online destination for all things garment care. And I opened that business with my sister almost 6 years ago, sort of out of the need to have like a customer service oriented and truly clean and eco-friendly laundromat. And what started out as like a self-service location is now basically, a place that is all about clean and green laundry. And we've added our own product line of planet and skin safe laundry care products, as well as a curated number of third-party products that really make laundry day more sustainable. And we're super proud that we've also recently launched New York City-wide pickup and delivery service. So we can provide our unmatched wash, dry, fold to basically everyone in the 5 boroughs. All the busy parents really, really love it.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Tina, tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tina Mangan. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter and a 5-month-old daughter. My husband and I both work full time. We do not have family close by. So when we had our 3.5-year-old, finding childcare, because we were both working full time, was extremely important to us. I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts and had previous thoughts about daycares that probably related to something looking like someone's basement or run out of someone's home, and never thought I would go down the daycare route, but was also paralyzed with fear about how to possibly interview for a nanny in New York City. My 3.5-year-old was essentially a COVID baby, and that caused my job at an advertising branding agency to go fully remote. And that kind of swayed me to make the decision to not have another adult in our home, and wanting to physically get my child out of our space that was now our home, where we're eating, sleeping, living, and now working. and out into a daycare, and found Vivvi and have been so, so happy with them. I recently decided to not go back to the corporate world and focus on my side hustle, which has become a main hustle. I'm the founder of basically Soho Bamboo Baby Pajamas. So that started while I was having my baby, who's now 5 months old. So tried to do the juggle of working and having a baby in the carrier on me all day long, and realized it wasn't feasible, and moms need separation too. So my 5-month-old started Vivvi at 4 months old, which was much younger than when my first started. But happy to answer any questions about juggling, changing jobs, or just my personal experience of how we decided on a daycare versus a nanny.
Love that. So so many unique and also really different experiences on this panel. So, as Tina said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in. I'm going to get started. Actually, let's start with you, Corinna. If you want to tell me a little bit about, let's talk about finding childcare. I think that's like the basic of like where everybody kind of starts, and is just, it's very overwhelming. How did you even get started thinking about childcare? What were some of your considerations for Leela, and ultimately, how did you end up where you are today?
Sure. So I'm going to preface with saying that obviously, everyone's family situation is different. So I am also, I'm super happy to obviously offer, my experience and what I've learned in kind of our journey of finding childcare. I'm very aware that that might not be, everyone's ideal situation, but I will say that we have tried sort of different lanes of childcare, and had very, very different experiences with each of them, until we ultimately landed at the daycare solution that we have now for Leela. So I think for me, and for us, so my husband, I should say, also works full time. He's a graphic designer. He, while I was pregnant with Leela, was also working remotely full time, as a lot of people were at the time. I was in a bit of a unique situation where I was running a laundromat with a physical location that was an essential business. So I was actually, throughout the entire span of the pandemic, I was going to work physically at my business. So what I decided pretty much early on, this was, early on in my pregnancy, I decided that I wanted a home birth, because at the time, for me, it was unthinkable to deliver in a hospital. And I felt very comfortable with that decision. I talked to my sister very early on, who's my business partner, and kind of mapping out what my postpartum work life parenting balance would look like. So I think that's really important. If you have business partners, you have a team, try to communicate as early as possible what you think your solution might look like. It may end up looking completely different. I will say that, and there were definitely a few things that I didn't anticipate, but I think that really helped in kind of setting the stage. So I decided with my sister and with my husband that I would spend the month before Leela was born, this was November 2020, at home, just to minimize the risk of contracting COVID pre-delivery. And then I spent 1 month, so 4 weeks postpartum, at home after I had Leela. And then what we agreed upon as a setup was, and this is again a very unique solution that we were fortunate to have, my parents, so Leela's grandparents, were renting the apartment above our business at the time. So we all as a family agreed that I would basically return to work with Leela, who was then at the time 1 month old, and try to, I think juggle is the right word, working in for at my business while also having sort of a safe space that was close to the business and additional childcare in the form of grandpa, grandma, and auntie. And we did this for the first 18 months of Leela's life. We then decided to enroll Leela in daycare for a number of reasons. Maybe I'll answer them later on to give other people the space to talk a little bit about their situation. But so yeah, we then decided to enroll her in daycare, had a little bit of a waiting phase. As you mentioned earlier on, Jessica, it does get very competitive, especially in New York and Brooklyn to get into daycare. So we had to bridge that. We had a couple of months of a gap that we had to bridge with a nanny, and then ultimately started a Montessori daycare for Leela in September of last year, so September 2022. Yeah, that is the long answer. I hope I answered the question. Some considerations that I think that really informed the decision initially to stick with family was, and again, this is unique because it was the height of the pandemic. At the time when Leela was born, daycare wasn't really an option for us. We decided that basically just the risk of contracting COVID at the time was too high for us, and we didn't feel comfortable having her in like a bigger group setting. And it was, I will say, in the beginning, it was very convenient for me to be able to take her to work and start kind of dipping my toes slowly into work life. Whoop, sorry, I just lost my AirPod. Yeah, dip my toes into working mom life. Ultimately, it was 18 months of juggling and just trying to do both of my roles as a boss as well as a mom justice. And I feel like I could never, I know this is a permanent mom struggle, but I felt like at the time I could not separate the two, and I could never do each of the roles full justice. And that then informed my decision to go with daycare. And once we enrolled Leela in daycare and I had that space of work and the space at home as mom again, that drastically changed my outlook on being a mom and being a boss again. So it was, for me, an absolutely welcome change.
I love that you really illustrated that. I think there is, often a misconception when you're pregnant that, being out, it's going to be so easy to I'll just throw the baby in a carrier and I'll just do all the work. And I think most of us are really, sometimes you have to live it to really understand how challenging that is.
Yeah.
And again, I think you're right. It's different for everybody, but I appreciate your honesty and your story. And I also think that it exemplifies that what works for you at one point in your early kind of motherhood journey may not work for you a month later or 6 months later or 18 months later. So it's okay to change your mind and to evolve your thoughts about your childcare situation to suit your needs at any moment. So Tina, maybe you can talk a little bit more about your first decision versus your second decision, also acknowledging you had a COVID baby or a pandemic baby as well, but that you with your second baby made the decision to start even earlier. And what were some of the considerations that you thought of when you were looking for childcare?
Yeah, like I said earlier, like I definitely had negative preconceived opinions about daycare. And when I walked into Vivvi specifically, I was like really just blown away by the facility and the teachers. It felt more truly like a school in early education versus just someone babysitting my child with a bunch of other babies around. I also just liked the fact that my daughters could grow there and could stay there until preschool, because I was already so overwhelmed with so many decisions. I was like, great, if I can get this girl into this place and keep her there until she's 4, that's like, I don't have to worry about other parenting issues for another 4 years. At least that one's taken care of. And I think, just getting up and getting out the door every day, I think my thought process was that the girls are going to have to do that eventually when they go to quote unquote real school. So why not get them trained now of, as annoying as it may be, I'm sure a lot of people on this call live in major cities and may not be able to pop the kids in car seats and drive to daycare. You're weathering the elements. It's something to consider. It's annoying when it's raining or storming or snowing, but once they're there, it's you have to just feel confident that your kids are in good hands. You definitely are losing a bit of control, I would say. So you have to just feel like you're really trusting the providers that are there and just know that they are professionals and they have your child's best interest, and kind of just let the process go. You will have hard drop-offs, but then you'll have days when you drop off and you're like, yes, like I can focus on me, I can get things done. It is 100% a whirlwind. But I think just looking for a place that you walk in, it's almost like, I guess I would like compare it to like when you toured colleges when you were younger. Like, did you get that gut feeling or any, place you just walked in and it just felt good? Meet with the providers, meet with the teachers, make sure you have a good feeling. And then communication is key. Don't be afraid to speak up and be clear about what your child needs and what makes you feel comfortable, so that once you're dropping them off, you still feel like you're connected and you're in the know. And then the last thing I'll say too is it's kind of nice to have a team of providers looking after your child. Like, another analogy I would use is like, you have a strong team in your corporate job that you trust and rely on. Everyone brings a different experience. Why not apply that same thing to childcare? So now you have a team of professionals, teachers who can help you, say your child's ready to start solids, or, let's go on this journey together. Let's get them through each phase of life. And you have a team of people that you can bounce ideas off of, versus having just one singular person who's, becoming a part of your home. So I think it just offers more flexibility, more space, and more separation.
Yeah, those are all such amazing points. And, I'm probably stating the obvious that there was no Vivvi when I had my little ones, and I, had the experience of having a nanny, and that was really wonderful in many ways because, yes, I didn't have to take my kids out in the snow and the rain. But that, yeah, when it came down to kind of making decisions, she was the only one, and me. And what did I know about being a mother at that point? So I do, I love that point of like, you're not just getting a place to kind of drop off your kid, but getting like really a team, which is, a really different kind of way to think about childcare as well. So, Rachel, I would love it. I know you're a doula, and that is, and you have the ability to talk to a lot of parents in the first in the pregnancy stage and then the postpartum stage, and kind of see the anxieties that they're carrying around when it comes to childcare. Can you talk a little bit about that, about what these anxieties are, and how you can help them assuage those anxieties by thinking about childcare, whether that's earlier or differently, and also how you've used it to apply to your own life as a mom of an 11-month-old.
Yeah. It's interesting that this is a question that you're asking me, because I had just like a pit in my stomach all day after I dropped my child at daycare. He's like very early on in the experience, and he really wants to be with me. We had him at home with us for the first 10 months of his life. My husband and I both work from home, and we were able to just tag team for most of that. And then it became very clear, as everyone else is saying, that it's also necessary to have your own space, and to be able to work in your home means that baby needs to be out of the home sometimes too. So the anxiety, I think, is real for everyone in terms of just very basically having someone else take care of your child for the first time, right? So you create that bond, you love being with your child, you see that they're most comfortable with you, and to pass them over to someone else for the first time is a very real experience, right? And it has happened at every step of the way with me. So that's just something to, I think, Tina, you mentioned the fact that it's going to happen at some point along the way. And I think oftentimes the earlier, not always, but the earlier you can establish like safe relationships or trusted relationships with other people with your child, the easier it's going to be for them too. I was reading something the other night about how tears can be okay. Like if you're changing a diaper and your baby is crying, it doesn't mean you're going to leave your baby in a soiled diaper because you don't want them to have tears, right? Like some things are necessary and some things are going to have to be worked through. So just that very, initial anxiety of handing your baby over to someone else it's just necessary for their development at some point in time. So really just seeking out people that you trust, and doing background checks. If you are going to have a nanny, find a trusted source to find a nanny, find recommendations from people that you trust. Look for safety certifications for any care provider that you'll be entrusting your child with, things like CPR certifications, newborn care certifications, anything that's important to you. Do your research. And if you find someone, let's say you're looking for a nanny, if you find someone that you really love and they don't have something, if you can offer to pay for it, see if you can find something that all of you can take together even. All of those things can kind of alleviate any anxieties. But I think cost is also just probably the number one situation here, right? Like looking at what is comfortable for your family to spend on childcare truly is going to really point you in the direction of your available options. So, looking at what is actually available to you, looking at any support that you have from maybe family members, like Corinna mentioned, any friends that can be helpful. I really see that it's typically not cut and dry, and you're not just like having this like beautiful childcare scenario, right? That's really just not how it works. And you really need to try to be flexible and just kind of, unfortunately, piecemeal it together, unless you have Vivvi. I am not in New York, and I really wish that I were, and please come to LA because I took a tour of Vivvi and I'm such a huge fan. I believe I was pregnant when we walked in, and I was like, please, can we just have these everywhere? So, I think, those things that I just listed, like cost, just the first time of, handing your child over to someone else, those can be really anxiety inducing, but really just listening to your gut, listening to your instinct. I think, Tina, you also mentioned this already. When you walk into a place, it's like, do you feel comfortable there? Do you like what you're seeing? Do you like the way the people are interacting with your child? Do you like the way the environment feels? I mean, you can feel it in your nervous system when you go into a place, so trust that, right? And then, Tina, you also mentioned this already. What is the communication process with these people? Whoever is going to be taking care of your children, is their communication good? And is it consistent? And is there a way that you can contact whoever is taking care of your child at any time of the day? That's really important too, to alleviate anxiety and just to make sure that you can always contact and establish some sort of communication with your child.
Yeah, I love that. I think, and especially when you're pregnant, it's hard to even like wrap your head around some of these things. For me, my anxiety started melting away when I started noticing like how excited my child was to see my nanny every day. And I know from working at Vivvi, the same thing happens at the first couple weeks. The kids are crying and it's really, and then, after that, you see them like they bound in and they run for their caregivers, or they see their friends and they fist bump them, or or just even the infants, they light up. And I think that's also, I certainly don't want anybody on this call to be terrified of childcare. It can be such a rewarding relationship with your caregiver, and it's truly, like, it's so heartwarming. I would love to talk. I know, Corinna, you mentioned, you're one of the people on this call that talks about family care. And I think a lot of us, even if it's just for, a temporary amount of time, or, or kind of filling in some of those gaps, end up using family members. And I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about boundaries and communication. And, it can be a little tricky to navigate when you have a family member potentially unpaid, that doesn't want to do it the way you want to do it. Can you talk a little bit about how you establish that communication, anything that you would advise our audience to kind of set out with in mind, and maybe any tricky situations that you got yourself into?
Yeah, to be completely honest, it is something that I am navigating to this day. It is, as you mentioned, it is tricky. It is not always easy. You mentioned, obviously, the unpaid scenario. I think that's what makes setting those boundaries very easy, with other caregivers, a nanny, obviously a daycare caregiver, where it is very clear that, you set the guidelines, they provide the service, they're getting paid for it. And, if they don't adhere to the guidelines you set, or you're not happy with the service they provide, then that relationship ends. Obviously, this is completely different with family members. And in my experience, also talking to friends and other family members, there's always going to be at least one person in that family setting that will, as much as you try to set those boundaries and make, establish the guidelines and the rules and make everything that you would like to happen very clear, there's always at least that one person who will try to push those boundaries a little bit. And that obviously that will make for tricky situations. In my experience, that has mostly happened around timing, as well as sort of child's routines around naps, meals, where I found that different family members have different ideas and opinions on what might be needed at any given time. And also, just when does the care start? When does it end? So that element of timing is just, in a family setting, oftentimes very fluid as to, compared to very clear cut in other childcare scenarios. So one thing that I found helpful, I will say, is a printed schedule. So that has helped me with kind of parents, with my parents, with in-laws, is sort of providing a black on white paper schedule of, here's what I would like to happen during the day, during the time that I would like you to watch Leela. And it was very clear, mealtime 12 to 1, nap time 1 to 3. This was later on. I don't even remember what her first nap schedule looked like, but just mapping that out very clearly. And I think it also, from what I experienced, it helped those family members just kind of, structure their care, and eliminated some of their anxieties or insecurities around, taking care of Leela. That said, ultimately, what pushed me or us to look into daycare was most certainly also that lack of having boundaries between family, business. So like my family, my relatives, my business, and my small family of husband and Leela. So I I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had the ultimate solution. But yeah, I don't I don't think I do. Yeah, I will say the thing that helped was printed out versus just communicating on the go.
And such a good point you make too, that it wasn't just for your benefit, but it actually made them feel better too, that, you know, you don't have to
Right.
look at it as I'm being a control freak. You're actually empowering them to do, you know, what hopefully, you know, will be more clear for them. So I
Right.
think that's such great advice. Boundaries are something that brings me to my next question, which is we're all working moms here. And I don't know, you know, if anybody in the audience wants to chime in, if you're working or planning not to work. I'd love to know, Tina, from you, how you kind of utilized your childcare to help you to create those boundaries and be more successful at work. You know, if you thought about childcare in a sense of, you know, do you ever, you know, bring them in a little early so you can get in a little bit of like, you know, an extra hour to work out before work, or you know, how have you you know, kind of strategically used childcare to help empower you as a working mom?
Yeah, for me, it really started just as a necessity, being in the corporate world and needing to be completely logged in from, you know, 8:30 to 6:30. So having those extended hours were really helpful at Vivvi. I think another important thing that we need to talk about too is the relationship that you have with your partner. And just as critical as it is to choose the childcare option that's right for you, it's also critical to understand how you're going to balance either with your partner or anyone else that you may have to just help, even though you do have childcare, because things come up and, you know, we don't talk about it enough, but the mental load of a mother is still there. So whether you're working from home and your kids are being taken care of at daycare or with a nanny, or if you're going into an office every single day, like most likely you're the one doing the laundry, unless you drop off a Celsius, or you're doing the grocery shopping on top of everything else. So I think for me, you know, corporate side, it was just a necessity. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything I can. All of a sudden it's 5, 6 o'clock and I'm rushing to pick up my children. Now having a bit more flexibility of, you know, not having to be completely logged on for those exact hours. It's a bit scary, you know, personally, because it's just such a shift of now you're really forcing yourself to make your own schedule, prioritize differently, but also being able to give yourself a little bit of grace. And I think the advice that I give myself and I would give, you know, new moms and working moms is they're only little for so long. So of course it's already tough to hand them off to someone else to take care of them. But you know, you make a choice as a working mom to stay involved in your career and excel for them. You know, you work so hard so that you can provide a great life for your children. So I think there's definitely times where now I will, you know, pick up early. I think I have a bit more flexibility, or I just do things to try to spend special time with one child, you know, versus the other. The shift from 1 to 2 children was also really challenging for me as well. So I picked up, you know, a ballet class for my 3-year-old daughter on Tuesdays. So she gets out a little early and that's just special time for her. Yes, I will get there where, and everyone should, you know, take the time to pick up a little later and get that workout in and take time for yourself. Because if you don't, the days will just go by. And I think the last thing I'll say is having them, you know, in the care of someone else and out of the home, use that time wisely to, you know, focus really hard on your career or do whatever you need to get done. Because the second that they're back in that apartment or in your home, easier said than done. I'm still working on it too. I just feel so strongly that it's like phone down. They've been gone all day. You've had your time all day. And just really understanding that when they come home and they say, you know, Mom, can you play with me? That's their way of saying that I need you. Like, I need your attention, and this is our time now. So the days go quick. Like the hours that they're under somebody else's care goes quick. So yeah, I think it's just prioritizing. Each day is different, what's important to you. But yeah, my best advice, and something I'm working on too, is once that, you know, day for both of you is over, work and childcare, then really working hard to turn on the switch and be full mom mode for those, you know, hours in the morning and at night, because it's just so critical for you and for them to just, you know, round out the day in that positive way.
Thank you. So like so many good points there. It makes me want to go a little off script, Rachel, and I want to ask you, building on what Tina's talking about self-care. And you talked a little bit about, I know you're a fair play facilitator, but just in general as a doula, and, you know, you talked about, I think initially when you were talking about childcare, you know, do you have to be a working mom to use childcare? And can you use childcare during times you're not at the office or at, you know, doing work? How can you, you know, think about childcare in a way that sustains your self-care, and why is that so important for moms? I'm literally 12 years postpartum, and I still am struggling with that.
Yeah, that's something that I have like a meter for personally, I think. And before I became a mom, I have had a lot of experience talking to women about, you know, when they reach that point where they're like, I don't feel like I can take this time for myself. I feel so guilty, but I really feel like I need it, or I'm really struggling right now. So you don't even need to get to the point where you're struggling. I think with the fair play work that we do, we kind of, you know, we usually talk to couples together and discuss what is going to work for them and what feels fair for them in terms of like divvying up the household responsibilities. You know, when you think about it, you have two adult human beings living under the same roof, and you just need to figure out how to get through all the things that need to be done every single day, right? Every single day or monthly, it's all kind of a wash. Like, no one really wants to do the dishes. No one really wants to do, you know, like sweeping of the floors or anything, but it needs to be done, and it needs to be done and in a way that you can, you know, I like to kind of just like change the perspective and make it like a happy and fun like family thing. But that's a little bit, I'm going down another rabbit hole there, but that's one aspect that can just provide self-care for us, is just figuring out a family system that works for you and your partner and for your entire family, anyone else that's coming into your home, right? Any support that you have with childcare. But I absolutely am an advocate of parents using childcare for going to get a workout, going to get a massage. I just pulled something in my back last week, and I was like, I need to get a massage immediately, because if you don't feel good, you can't, like Tina's saying, you can't show up for your children in a way that feels really good to you either, right? So I am definitely an advocate of using childcare if and when you need it, even if you are a stay-at-home mom, even if you don't have it set up just for working, right? So yes, absolutely to that.
I already feel better, and I am definitely going to plan a massage tomorrow while my children are with their caregiver.
Or even just like, you can start out really basic and just say, let's start out with, and this sounds really crazy to people that don't have children either. I mean, I myself, like before this was like, what? But even just starting out, if you have young children, starting out with like 1 hour per week for each person to completely just leave and not have to do anything. It's good for both parties to take care of the child themselves and understand what happens like during the time frame of just being completely responsible for children and the household and everything. But it's also really important for us as human beings to be able to just detach and be in our own bodies and just really try to find this like grounding force again, because you can get overstimulated, and you can get, if you're waking up and you are taking care of your child, you're going straight to work and you're coming back and then you're immediately on again. Like, you really do need some time to just decompress and feel your own body again, you know?
Yes, that's really great advice. And, you know, I think like many things, it's hard to know until you know, until you're living it. But, you know, I always wish that I had been told some of these things earlier on and not had to go through so much to get there.
Yeah.
Um,
And even
I
just
would love,
having, okay, I'm sorry, one more
no,
thing.
you go ahead, please.
Just like having like a kind of like a word, like a key word that you're just going to use. We do this in labor too, where it's like, okay, I cannot take this moment anymore. I need some more support. I think establishing that just in your daily life can be really important too, right? I think I heard something, I think I heard, it was Brene Brown that said her and her husband talk about their like levels every day. Like I'm at a 20, I'm at an 80. Okay, I can like support you more today. Just coming in and saying, knowing that when you go to your partner and having that understanding between the two of you, saying, listen, I'm really needing support right now. I know you might not see it or you might not understand it, but I need that right now. I need to like step away, or if you would do this for me today, that would be incredibly helpful, because there are days that we just like can't come full force, and that's completely understandable.
Yeah, and knowing that, you know, hopefully you have somebody else even besides your partner potentially that you can rely on, you know, for those days where you're both at an 80 or a 95. Yeah, I would love to invite our audience if you have any questions. You know, I know we're getting towards the end of our conversation. Throw them in the chat. We would love to answer them for you. I have a few more, so I'll ask one more if everybody just wants to get their fingers cooking or their brains started. Communication. That's something you were just talking about in terms of even your partner, but what about with your caregiver? And particularly, you know, I know when you use daycare, you have group care, you feel a little bit of a lack of control. But that can also happen with a nanny. You know, how can you create successful communication with your caregiver? And maybe each of you could just kind of provide one short tip that our audience can take home. Tina, you go first.
Oh boy. Okay. I think mine is a bit similar to what Corinna was saying with like a schedule. I am a big believer of moms on call. Actually, I followed it with both of my girls. I prefer a schedule. I've read enough that children also prefer schedules because of predictability. So I was just very clear that this is the schedule that I follow and that I want my child to fall into, and for them to do the best that they can to follow that. So I was just very clear and upfront about what I wanted. And if was it hit every day 100%? No, but at least there was a clear guardrail and rule and standard that I set upfront.
Yeah, I definitely second that 100%. One thing that I found really interesting as Leela just started her second year in daycare, the head guide of the new class that that she's going to now sent out a short Q&A before the school year started, just kind of touching on all the points regarding childcare of, you know, your like care of your child, and kind of where they were at developmentally, what they like to do, what their favorite activity was, any and we could share any concerns that we had around toileting, eating, any other habits, sleeping, napping, and I found that really helpful in terms of being able to communicate that to the teacher before the school year even started. And it got me to thinking that, oh, you know, if I ever were to hire a caregiver again, like a nanny or a babysitter, I think having that Q&A basically as a guideline of, okay, this is where we're at currently with Leela. These are some of the points that I would like you to look out for. That's just so helpful. Like, this is like her favorite activity. She's really into like painting right now. These are her favorite books. She likes to listen to this while going to sleep, etc. Yeah.
So great. Love it. Rachel.
Yeah, so those are all wonderful. I do all of those also, just like the practicality of having the information that's necessary in front of whoever's taking care of your child. But I'll add, I think, the approach to the person that you have chosen, to the person or the team of people who is taking care of your child every day is also incredibly important. And they're also, I think, you have to kind of look at where they're coming from always also, and what they're going through. And just, I like to, even if there's something that needs to be assessed, I guess, just coming to them with love, truly, right? I know that might sound kind of silly, but you've chosen them for a reason, and they're a very important, and they play a very impactful role in your life and in your family. So I think whenever something difficult needs to be talked about or communicated, or if you do feel very strongly about something, just really being thoughtful and considerate about how you're approaching someone and having an open discussion with them is always really appreciated. I say this because I actually was a nanny and a mother's helper for years, and there can be a different relationship at play. So just always considering the people that are in your life, I guess.
I love that. And it's such a unique relationship. At least I can say, from having a nanny, is this person is somebody you employ, but you also love. They take care of the most important thing in your life. It's so complicated and also can be so rewarding. And that person should be recognized for how special they are. And I think I'll end with just giving my last piece, which I think is listen. I think sometimes we go into these relationships so ready to teach. And I have found when I can take in that there's so much that my caregiver has to offer me. I had one of my caregivers recognize a medical issue with my child. And I think sometimes it's scary for a caregiver to give that kind of advice or feedback to a parent. But if you have the ability to just listen and pay attention and trust that they are the expert that you brought them in for, there's so much to be learned, and and so much to be enjoyed. So I think that's about it for us. We're almost at time. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my email in here. If anybody needs anything, you can find me here, and you can find more about Vivvi here. So I'm gonna drop this in here, and if you want to drop in any information about your businesses, I would invite you to do that as well. Here's all about Vivvi. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us tonight. I am so grateful. I know you are all busy, and not just our panelists, but our the people that are in our audience tonight. Thank you for your time. This will be emailed to you as a video. You can rewatch it anytime. You can share it with friends. Good luck to everybody, and we can't wait to hear about what childcare decisions you make. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.